something that is really fascinating is why these hunter-gatherers, like the Kitavan Islanders over here, the Agi hunter-gatherers, why they don't have acne. These guys have been studied along with other, tribes and non-Westernized societies extensively, especially these two. And what has been found is just, people don't really understand it. Modern medicine thinks, it's some kind of, paradox, and it's really weird why they don't have acne when we are in the Western world are struggling so much with acne. Like over 1 billion people worldwide are struggling with acne. These tribes have literally been studied, and people just think, acne is just genetics, it's just your hormones, it's just because of puberty. But that doesn't make any sense when you look at these tribes. Thousands of people have been, or like 1,000 plus people have been studied across just these two tribes, including teenagers, kids, adolescents, whatever, like all kinds of ages. No acne has been found. So, if it was just genetics, that doesn't make any sense, because these tribes are just supposed to have, elite genetics that just make sure that they don't have acne. Or, it can be the hormone thing, because these people are also going through puberty and, massive changes in hormones. And, yes, that kind of like explains the whole puberty thing, why that doesn't make any sense either. So, all these, things that you hear about, it's just because of puberty, it's just your hormones, like that doesn't make any kind of sense at all. So what it's actually, what is the real answer to why these people don't have acne? It's actually pretty simple when you actually understand what acne is and what causes it at the root cause. So like, this is literally the playbook to like what you gotta do and what these people do to not have any acne. They eat whole foods, lots of fruit, vegetables, meat, fish, a very nutrient dense diet with, the vitamins and minerals and, phytochemicals, all that kind of stuff that your body needs to actually improve its skin from the inside out, keep the skin healthy, keep the body healthy. Especially, the Kitavan Islanders, they eat a lot of fish, consume a lot of omega-3, which has been shown in multiple studies to improve acne. When you consume more omega-3 deficient people have been shown to have more acne. So, just basically eating a nutrient-dense diet, avoiding all this kind of processed food, is going to be really beneficial, which is also kind of my next point. They eat a very low glycemic diet compared to, most Western foods. They don't consume, refined carbohydrates, like white bread, pasta, soda, candy, whatever. And that's not to say that these things are like inherently bad. I also eat kind of like white bread, sourdough bread sometimes. I eat pasta when I'm on vacation, all that kind of stuff. But it's basically something that you can play around with if you're struggling with acne. And it's basically something that these people do that can, play a part in why they don't have acne. And also, that's kind of like further down here, but it makes you more metabolically healthy, because it makes you more insulin sensitive, which then causes you not to have, chronically elevated insulin, which elevates your IGF-1, which then increases your sebum production. It causes inflammation. It can cause an overgrowth of, the acne bacteria on your face, which can then, lead to even more inflammation and actually give you the pimples, the actual acne on your face. So that's just a little rant about, insulin and why low glycemic foods generally tend to be healthier and also just in regards to acne. They also eat high fiber, from the fruits, vegetables, and, the tubers and all that kind of stuff that they eat. This helps feed, beneficial gut bacteria, improves gut health, which once again is super, super important for your acne. By the way, I'm sorry if the camera is, a little laggy. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I can't really fix it, but you just gotta bear with it. They also get lots of movement, lots of sunlight. You basically here, you gotta avoid sunlight if you're struggling with acne. It makes it worse. It increases inflammation, all that kind of stuff. Wear sunscreen. These people don't do that. They get lots of movement throughout the day. They walk a lot. They get lots of sun, infrared light, and there's so many mechanisms behind why that's healthy. Obviously, vitamin D is one of them. Infrared light helps, calm inflammation, helps, create melatonin in the skin, which acts as antioxidants. There's just so many things that you can dive into with sunlight. It also improves, the gut microbiome with, literally UV light hitting your stomach and, improving all that kind of stuff. I basically covered this, but also they have a very low exposure to toxins. So, they're not exposed to, no microplastics, basically no heavy metals, no, pollutants from like industrial stuff, factories, all that kind of stuff. They basically just live a very natural, low cortisol lifestyle. That is also something that's gonna really help with acne, not stressing, having chronically elevated cortisol is not something that you want, especially not for your skin. So basically, the game plan for you, if you want to fix your acne and you want to basically take inspiration from these people that do it pretty freaking well, is just to start living more naturally. Eat a nutrient-dense diet, whole foods, and try to avoid as much of these processed, seed oil-rich foods, bullshit, that aren't really nutrient-dense, and avoid these kind of like high glycemic foods. It's something that you can play around with, and see what works for yourself. Also, spend more time outside, get sunlight, grounding, movement, workout, basically get healthier. And it's, you gotta really view acne as, part of this, bigger picture of like holistic health. You can't just expect to improve one thing, your skin. You gotta basically make your entire body healthy, and your skin is gonna be healthy as well. So also, avoid toxins, like all these chemicals in foods, microplastics, heavy metals. There's tons of bad ingredients in, some skincare products, personal care products, all that kind of stuff. Basically, like, get healthier and your acne will improve. And if you want, my personal help on all this, the complete step-by-step guide, sorry for the plug, but like, I just launched my Acne Academy, my community, course thing, whatever you want to call it. So if you, want the whole, diet playbook, skincare guide, supplements, all that kind of stuff, what to eat, what not to eat, the whole protocol, and literally everything, me guiding you along the way. You can ask me any kind of questions. You can check out the first link in the description. It's going to be my new school community with the course, literally less than $1 a day. But yeah, this is basically like, try to do this and your skin is going to improve.